quite nice, thinking of how I can bring some kind of devotion or the bhakti in my either the hatha yoga practice, my pranayama, my meditation, or karma yoga, or even day to day life. So I guess if we take the concept of bhakti, concept of devotion is actually surrendering our ego, surrendering that asmita, that I do it, I have to do it, I am the one who should get something. When we can surrender that I and we become into the collective being, that can be us or that can be our collectiveness, the union or harmony with the divine or the higher, the cosmic consciousness, then this conflict, that conflict because I have to do it, or me poor thing, or why do I do this, why do I have to do certain things. So when that conflict between the action and our desire or the fruit has gone, and how do we let go of that conflict, how do we let go of the desire? I guess the one way to think really is in tuning or attuning ourselves with our own true self. So in if you start looking inward to see beyond our material desires or material perspective or perception, or this constantly outgoing nature where we are seeing that love means or happiness, joy means this or that, all these material things, which obviously never ends. One of my favorite story, and it's something I remember, not long ago, that one of my guru, the sadhu, I lived for quite a while, and he had some of these followers, and one of the family he would visit almost every year, in every year or two, and he will stay in the house. And then one of the time he took me, we both went there and we stayed for a week. We were doing some yoga, some satsangs, and some bhajans every evening. And in one of the satsang, he was talking to the family and he just asked them, are you all happy now? And the family said, oh well, we are kind of fine, we are quite happy, but we wish that instead of living into a bungalow, into this house, we wish that we had a farm. And as the talk goes, my guru looks at them and he says, oh well, I don't see ever you're going to be happy, and until you let go of this happiness into what is not there, what we don't have, you're never going to be happy. And I kind of looked at my guru like, oh, I don't understand, what do you mean, why are you like saying to somebody that you can never be happy by your material outlook or the way you're looking for your happiness? So the master, he was telling me, a few years back when he came to the family once, they used to live in a rented house. And he asked them, oh, are you all happy? You enjoying your life? And they said, oh, well, we are happy as a family, but we would love to be living in our own flat, the house that belongs to us. And he said, oh, well, may the divine bring the happiness to you. And he said, after a few years, they bought an apartment with the 2 bedrooms, and he came to see them again. And after a few days, he asked the same question, are you guys happy now? And he said, oh, their answer was again same, like, oh, we are quite happy, we got our own house now, our flat, but we would love to have a house that is, we got our own ground and we have our own garden where kids can play outside. And he said, now they got the house, but still not happy. So this not happy, not contented with what we have, and then looking for that joy, that happiness outward. This is our material outlook, or we are judging, we are looking at ourselves from the material perspective of our life. So the way we express now our happiness, our love, our joyfulness, or even our relations with people or the places and the work is sort of conceived with some sort of material outlook. But in a true sense, what is always there though, what we call the Atma Prem, or the self-love, the love for your own self, love for your own life, love for your own prosperity, but that is beyond the material or the physical side, the material aspects of our living. It's sort of, if you think, how much we love ourselves, if you try to just sit straight and then close your nose and say, I'm not going to breathe ever again. And that will show you after 10 seconds, or maybe some of us might take 20 seconds, 30 seconds, or a minute. We'll have a strong desire, urge from in somewhere that will enforce you to let go of your hands, unlock your lungs, your breathing, and then start to breathe again. So that self-love, either in a material perspective or our spiritual and our mental, emotional being, that is actually the strongest force we have. So in some ways, when you're looking at this whole idea of letting go this material outlook, material conflict, then you start to look inward and you can see that there is this abundance of love, abundance of this true potentiality, the true love that we all have. And in a way, so the bhakti, the concept of bhakti is to devote ourselves inward. Now that inward devotion begins with your own true self, and then that goes into our divine or higher or the cosmic conscious self. Instead of, if you think, how amazing it is, when we go for making a prayer in a church or a temple or a mosque, whichever institute you believe, whenever you're in that space that we have created purely for that bhakti, that devotional prayer or devotional thinking or singing, chanting, suddenly that space, when you walk or when you enter into that space, it gives you that strong resonance, that strong healing vibration, and you suddenly feel like, wow, life is different, life is amazing just to be in there. So this concept of devotion is actually going out of this conflicted material outlook into that self-love, or the self-love can be seen as love for our Atman, or that is our soul consciousness, or the Paramatman, the divine or the higher self, the cosmic self. So in a way, this whole concept of bhakti or devotion is looking inward and nurturing this self-love. Now, please don't ever think that this self-love of your own evolution, your health, your happiness, it's actually not being selfish. Because when people can love themselves, you can also love everyone else. So to actually be great, be joyful, be happy, or be nourishing and nurturing to each and every life that exists around you, first step, really, you need to connect with yourself. You need to nurture your own self. You need to nurture your own self. You need to learn to live and love yourself. So this concept of bhakti, or this concept of devotion in yoga, is actually appreciating that self-love, or that love, that sense of happiness that we can find, or this blissful state we can find, to go inward, to be connected with oneself. Now in many ways, this concept of bhakti, or this concept of devotion, we sort of express, or we tune ourselves in different ways, in different sort of traditions or different approaches of our lifestyle. Like, in yogic traditions, when we talk about the Bhakti Yoga or the devotional yoga, then we have the concept of singing, chanting, all these mantras, all these bhajans. Similarly, I guess in also in like the Christian system, we have, people visit the church, and there is the time where we listen the prayers, and also the choir, all that singing, and lots of service work goes in. So it's almost, each and every sort of culture and tradition have their own bhakti concept, the devotional concept. And then when it comes to the yogic perspective, then the bhakti goes into, freeing ourselves from all the mundane, all the material desires or the possessions, and then offering our each and every breath, each and every practice, each and every karma actions to the divine, or to the higher purpose, or the higher cause in our life. And that divine purpose can be different for different people. For some people it can be servicing the humanity, maybe doing some sort of social care, helping people who need help. For other people, it can be, service can be looking after the nature or trees or plants. It can be caring for people who need help. It can also be actually just putting all your energy into your spiritual activities, spiritual work, where you're sharing the love and sharing the wisdom and sort of like spiritual counseling for people.
One thing that I often do, just talking about the practice and bringing that bhakti, is if I'm doing any type of hatha yoga or pranayama practice or chanting or bhajan singing, I like literally take my mind, my inner vision if you like, upwards. So I'll kind of close my eyes and then I'll try and bring my mind usually at the bindi point, and I find that just actually pushing my kind of inner vision upward really helps somehow bring some kind of connection. And I think there is like something about our inner vision. If we're kind of looking down, it's kind of like, I don't know, it's almost like a whole set of emotions come with this kind of inner gaze that we have. But before I practice yogic practices, I'll often kind of really direct my mind upwards, and I think that really helps personally get that kind of bhakti aspect.
Yeah, thank you for that. Yeah, so it's sort of true, really. Again, what Deepika is saying here, mentioning our upward or the onward look, and it's very interesting. One of the practice in especially on our linguistic aspect of yoga, in our tradition when we talk, there is a huge amount of the words and how do you phrase them and how you say them. That's also can help you to lift your spirit and bring that higher or uplifting spirit in you. It's something, like I can never remember Amaji ever saying, let's sit down. Because, the minute you say sit down, that spirit, that consciousness, you just making it to go down. So she always said, we should at least say, let's sit up. Or
she would say the yogi sits up, the yogi never sits down, which is I always liked.
So as a bhakti, as your own devotion to yourself, or this the transforming or changing our spirit and our life, is just changing even some words in our day-to-day life. Actually, can be a great bhakti practice, a great devotional practice, by just saying more positive or uplifting things. It can be, as we said, sitting up, or standing up, or keeping our head or chin up, lifting our shoulders up. It's seeing more of our life as like a challenge or an opportunity instead of a problem or the burden. And having that courage also, the virtue of courage, where we are happy to face, we are happy to go out, we are happy to live this life and face each and every challenge or each and every opportunity with that positive or with that higher spirit. And then Krishna, in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says about the Bhakti Yoga, he said, well, each and everything you do, he said, put your mind into the divine. So including, if you're breathing in and breathing out, your mind should be focused on to the divine. Now the divine, again, it can be different meanings for us all. Some of us maybe believe in spirit, some of us believe in energy, some of us believe in Shiva or Jesus. So he said, put your mind into the divine, into the higher. So then, each and every action you do, each and every duty you performing, seeing the divine performing the duty through you. And for me, another thing I always look into this aspect of our devotion or offering our life, our purpose or actions to the divine. See, when you have the humanistic or the divine purpose of your life activities, the abundance or the fruit of that divine purpose is going to be with you all the time, because the material fruit of our actions, either your hatha yoga practice, your work you do, it's impermanent, it's changing. If you work for a whole month and you get money paid into your account, and if you're lucky enough or you're not lucky enough that you didn't sign into your bank account for a couple of days while all the direct debits meant to go out, the material fruit of your work, how many days we see that. So the material fruit of all our actions actually is impermanent, and that brings, either it's going to bring greed or it's going to bring fear. It brings that instability. But when you have the devotion, the higher purpose in your life, in your actions, when you see the better, the divine perspective, then that divine perspective you see is going to be there eternally. You know, if you helped someone and someone gave you £10, you come back home and you did your shopping and the money is gone. But if you see that I actually work, money is just a side effect or the fruit, the outcome that I get for my help. My genuine heart is focused on how can I help people. So once you have that heart into the right place, into the bhakti, into this devotional, into this humanitarian attitude, when you done your help, then the love or the appreciation you get from that person, well, that's going to be eternally there. You know, when someone gives you a compliment or a nice feedback or say something nice, like, you know, about something, how that lifts or recharges or brings that joy in your life. So in even in that way, you know, the material perspective is impermanent. It just brings uncertainty. It brings more fear or greed. While the divine perspective, the humanitarian perspective, if you look from that angle, it is actually bringing unconditional joy or the true happiness that is going to be there.
Yeah, I agree.
You want to say something?
Nothing's coming to my mind right now. We said namaste, everyone.
Yeah, so that's, I guess that's the first topic, really, in a very simplified way. Even though I know this concept of Bhakti Yoga or this devotion, we can go on and on it for as long as we like to. And there are great sort of stories of Bhakti Yoga or this devotional sort of aspect of yoga that exist in not only in yoga, but, you know, I kind of see, you know, it kind of exists in each and every spiritual tradition or the spiritual culture wherever we go to.
It's kind of, I always feel it's quite very connected with the fifth niyama as well, the Ishvara Pranidhana.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's that kind of giving yourself up to the divine purpose or the greater vision and having that real full faith, like unwavering faith that no matter what's happening in your life, it's all part of the divine greater plan, and you're trying to open and allow yourself to be used as a tool for the divine work. And that's kind of like a level of the Ishvara Pranidhana that I kind of interpret it.
Mm-hmm.
Don't know what you think.
Yeah, well, that's a nice sort of inclusion to expand our talk for tonight towards Ishvara Pranidhana, another, you know, beautiful concept, sort of really expanding the concept of Bhakti Yoga. So Ishvara Pranidhana or Ishvara Prasadana literally translate as devoting or offering our life to the divine or to the higher or to the bigger purpose in life. And, you know, as Swamiji translated as Ishwar Prasadanam, which means our life is a divine blessing. So each and every life event that we're going through is a divine blessing. And, you know, obviously, you know, some of the events you might say, why do we have to go through so many hard things? How that can be seen as a divine blessing or a divine purpose. It can, you know, have many ways we can look at it. As you know, one of the concept that yoga explains, that most of the life events we go through, it's actually just a simple consequence of the choices we are making. So it's not, you know, not that divine is actually bringing or giving constant fruits and the punishments to us. It's just that whatever we are doing, the choices we are making, those choices are bringing their own consequences in long term. Some choices obviously we might have made in previous lifetimes. But when you look down at the life events as a punishment or torture, then what it really does, it creates a mental and emotional blockage. It kind of sucks our energy, life out, and then we got nothing to deal with it. But when you can change your perspective, and then when you see there is a divine purpose, so the only way we can see divine purpose in our life events and our life activities, or when we can have this devotion in life, when we are actually being able to surrender ourselves to the divine, to the higher, and to do that, what we're doing, we are coming out of being a victim, being a subject or object in life events, when we become the witness, when we being able to read our story or life events from a third person perspective. So as you know, in Bhagavad Gita it is explained that all the karmas that we do, that your body is the instrument, your sense organs and your mind becomes the drive force, and those karmas, those desires are rooted into our primordial qualities. Those are the three gunas, the three qualitative characters we have, our sattva, rajas and tamas. But on top of all that, the soul, our consciousness that is in there, is just the witnessing awareness. Our soul is actually not doing anything, it's not doing any action. But by having our material desire or material perspective and all this, when you're looking down, you are actually locking yourself in a box of your own thoughts, your own limited perception or experience. And when you opening your eyes or opening your heart and surrendering that I into the divine, you are looking upward, you are looking onward, where your perception, your perspective and your experience is naturally enhanced, and you see the divine, the higher or the bigger purpose of your life. And in that way, we can start to see that how things can be changed, how things can be transformed. So it's like whenever we are into the darkest phase or the darkest point in our life, it is so hard to see what can be done right or how can we change it. And then we seek for some sort of counseling, some sort of spiritual help or help from our parents and family. And when somebody else listens that story, they can easily say, oh, you can do it in certain way. And this is something, we all do that. When somebody else comes and asks us advice for the same problem we might be in, it's very hard to see what we can do. But if somebody else, it's easy to point to them, or especially people you really love, people you really care, it's so easy to say, oh, if you do it this way, you will be fine. But when we are into the darkness, so the darkness is actually looking down, looking into that I, looking into that ignorance, looking into that darkness. And then the bhakti, this Ishwar Prasadanam, this concept is looking above that I, looking above that me, looking above that ego. So you can start to actually your ego, that I, that me, what me want, how I want to experience it, becomes a very little bit of our experience or perception, because we start to see things from a bigger perspective. It's like looking at somebody from a top of mountain, how much we see. So this devotional attitude or the practice of Ishwar Pranidhana or Ishwar Prasadanam is actually going away from that I, that ego, and looking at ourselves from the conscious or the Atmic perspective, from perspective of our soul or the awareness.
Mm-hmm.
I can see Deepika nodding head, having a break of my tea.
Visualizing. Yeah, so it's like often we say when you're in a problem, it's like you're at the bottom of the Himalayas in all like the busy towns or whatever, and it's really hectic and noisy and smelly and and you're in the middle of it. But then when you climb up to the top of the mountain, it's like clear and clean, and you can see where you were, and it's just like tiny, like a nothing, and it's like consciousness is evolving as well, isn't it? So our perspective is widening. So what seem like big problems are actually, we then see them as small problems.
Mm. Yes, it's sort of like, moving from our reactive, our fight, flight, or reptilian response into our cortex or our human, our conscious brain, really, looking at the higher or the different perspective. And this is something I believe, we all do that, like in day-to-day life, wherever we are confused or into the dilemma in things. I'm sure we all have somebody that we can talk to, somebody that we can tell, okay, this is what's happening, and then suddenly, just sometime, even by talking to somebody who listens you without judging or without sort of making us feel like it's right or wrong, it just gives us a completely different perspective or different idea on our life or those life events.